Alright, so here we have our map of Japan, and this is the Pacific Theater during World War II. Over here, you can see this is where Pearl Harbor is. That's where the initial Japanese attack was. And right here, in green, you can see the island of Midway, which is where the U.S. regained naval superiority in the Pacific, and that was a battle fought in 1942. Fast forward a few years, and U.S. victory over Japan seems certain. In 1944, it was pretty clear that the U.S. was going to win. We had regained a lot of land that was in Southeast Asia, and additionally, in 1945, we captured two very important islands. One is called Okinawa, and the other is called Iwo Jima. And the U.S. Armed Forces fought very hard for control of these islands, and a lot of men died. But the reason that Okinawa and Iwo Jima were so important was because they were so close to the Japanese mainland, which is right here. And they served as important U.S. military bases for planning an attack on the Japanese mainland. So in 1945, U.S. President Harry S. Truman has realized that no matter how close U.S. military forces get to the mainland of Japan, and no matter how many bombing raids they're able to launch from two islands that they hold now, Okinawa and Iwo Jima, it just doesn't look like the Japanese are going to surrender. And this is a picture of Harry Truman. He's the 33rd president of the U.S. And in early July of 1945, Truman announces that the U.S. will be using a new secret weapon on the mainland of Japan. And this secret weapon is known as the A-bomb, or the atomic bomb.
So all in all, despite setbacks, Japanese military leaders refused to surrender. And in early July of 1945, American President Harry S. Truman announced that he would use a new secret weapon, the atomic bomb, on the mainland of Japan. A lot of historians look into Truman's reasons for dropping the first atomic bomb, and they generally agree on two different things. The first was that Truman hoped to end the war swiftly and avoid the enormous loss of life that would come with an American ground invasion of Japan. A second reason may also have been to use the bomb to intimidate the Soviet Union with American military power, to show the communist state how strong the U.S. was, because tensions were getting tight between the USSR and the USA. On August 6, 1945, American planes dropped the first atomic bomb over the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The blast leveled most of the city. When Japan did not respond to this first attack, a second atomic bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki on August 8th. 200,000 people died in both cities altogether from the initial bombing, but many more died in the months to come after the bombings from radioactivity.
So if you look at these pictures, you can only really start to understand the massive destruction that came from these two atomic bombs dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Financially and economically, these regions were ruined. Millions of people homeless, out of work, no food, no clothes, no shelter. And that's without even getting to the horrific injuries and exposure to radioactivity, and the fact that radioactive isotopes were literally attached to the soil. The whole area became a toxic dead zone.
On August 14, 1945, after two atomic bombings, Japan surrendered. On September 2, 1945, Japan signed the official surrender documents and World War II ended. After the war, between November 1945 and September of 1946, Nazi leaders were put on trial as war criminals in the German city of Nuremberg, and these trials were known as the Nuremberg trials. Many areas of Europe and Asia were ruined. As many as 12 million people were homeless, and clothes, food, and medicine were all in short supply. The suffering and hardships from World War II would prove to last long after the war's end in 1945.